Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another playoff prediction video to do. The first round has now been completed. We're going to be looking at the second round and seeing exactly who I would have at this point in time to go on to the third round, the Stanley Cup final, and who my new Stanley Cup winner is at this point in time, because I'll have that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Intent Hockey channel. Now before I begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. We're so close to 300 subscribers. Thank you for your support. I would never be able to without you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below, and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss in today's video. Now, before I start this video, I just wanted to do a quick channel update. Tomorrow there was only going to be one regular video. That's my game review video in the morning. But I'm going to be doing a live video at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time discussing what happens with the draft lottery. The draft lottery is tomorrow, so we'll see who gets the first overall pick and the rights to get Macklin Celebrini. Last year, the Blackhawks got the first overall pick. We were able to draft Connor Bedard, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be an interesting and really cool thing to see, but I am going to be doing a live draft lottery video, so stay tuned for that. But today, we're going to be doing another playoff prediction video here. Now first, let's recap what happened in round one of this year's playoffs. So first, in the Metro Division, we had two series, including the New York Rangers taking on the Washington Capitals for the first time in nearly a decade in the playoffs. We had the Hurricanes playing the Islanders for a second straight year in the first round. For the Capitals and Rangers, it was not really close at all. The Rangers were a class above the Capitals, like I thought. Rangers were able to win the first game in New York 4-1. They won the second game 4-2 in New York. The third game in Washington, they wound up winning by scoring 3 straight. And then the fourth game, it was just all New York. They wound up extending the lead and then finishing it off in the third period. So really good stuff there for the Rangers, who swept the Washington Capitals. Meanwhile, the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders didn't fare too much better against the Hurricanes. Hurricanes were able to easily get a Game 1 win. Game 2, they were down 3-0 to the Islanders, but came back and won 5-3, so the Hurricanes showed a resilient effort there. The Islanders, who then put in Sorokin in Game 3, pulled him after letting in 3 goals, and wound up losing 3-2 to the Hurricanes. Went back to Varlamov, who had a fantastic performance and helped the Islanders wound up winning in double overtime over the Hurricanes, so that was really good for them. But then they wound up losing, I think it was 6-3 in Game 5. So Canes beat the Islanders in 6, not too surprising there. And in the Atlantic, we had the Tampa Bay Lightning play the Florida Panthers, and then the Bruins play the Maple Leafs. For the Panthers and Bolts, it was a tighter series, but it was another short series. The Panthers were able to get a 3-2 Game 1 win. The Panthers were able to get a 3-2 overtime Game 2 win, both in Florida. Then they got a 5-3 win in Tampa. Then Tampa actually showed up for Game 4 and did fantastic, really put Florida in their place and beat them 6-3 in Game 4 to extend the series. But then Florida was able to win 6-1 in Game 5 and really put that series away. So Florida had a fantastic series. For the Boston Bruins and Toronto Maple Leafs series, Bruins were able to win Game 1 5-1. Then Matthews really took over Game 2 and helped the Leafs win 3-2. Then the Bruins were able to have a couple of 2-goal wins, first 4-2 and then 3-1 on the road to take a 3-1 series lead. Then the Leafs would play with some desperation without Matthews, win 2-1 in overtime in Game 5, win 2-1 in Game 6 to force the Game 7, which was fantastic for them, just like they did back in 2013 and 2018 against the Bruins when they were down 3-1 and forced to Game 7, but also just like in 2013 and 2018, they wound up losing in Game 7, as the Bruins were able to come away with a 2-1 OT victory in Game 7 to advance to round 2. So I'm a little bit surprised that the Leafs weren't able to pull it off, but that was a really good series, really entertaining series, and just like I thought, it did go 7 games, so that's a pretty good pickup there for the Bruins and the Maple Leafs. If you go over to the Central Division, you had the Avalanche taking on the Jets, and you also had the Stars taking on the Golden Knights. Those were 2 interesting series. For the Stars Knights series, Game 1, it was a really interesting game, but the Knights were able to escape with a 4-3 victory. Game 2, another tight game in which the Knights came away with a 3-1 victory, so they were up 2-0. They went back to Vegas. They were inches away from making this a 3-0 series lead, but then Wyatt Johnson scored in overtime to give the Stars the 3-2 OT win and cut the series out to 2-1. Then the Stars were able to held on, and by the skin of their teeth, beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-2 as they tied up the series. They went back to Dallas and take a 3-2 series lead to finally have a huge home victory, first one of the series for either team. The Knights would then go back home and they would take a win, being able to take a 2-0 win over the Dallas Stars to tie up the series 10-7, but it was too little too late. And the Stars would narrowly defeat the Golden Knights in the first round in Game 7 by winning 2-1. So an interesting series there. Then we saw the Avalanche take on the Jets. The first game was extremely high event, and it was an extremely back and forth game. The Avalanche were able to have a back and forth, but lost 6-7 to the Winnipeg Jets. But after that, it was all Colorado. First, they would win 5-2 in Game 2. It was a really interesting game, but the Avalanche really showed their dominance. Then they won 6-2 in Game 3 back at home. That was a really good, impressive win there for the Avalanche. Then they won 5-1 in Game 4, with the Jets needing to play with desperation and they gave up 4 straight goals. And then in the last game of the series, which wound up being the last game of the series, the Avalanche were able to double up the Jets 6-3, score 3 straight goals in the third, and really just put that series away. So that was a little bit surprising. I thought that one would go to distance, and it wound up being a 5-game series. So bad stuff there for the Jets. And then the Pacific Division, we had the Kings take on the Oilers. We had the Canucks taking on the Predators. Those were some interesting series. Kings-Oilers. Game 1 was a really good win there for the Oilers. They wound up being the Kings 7-4. Impressive win. Game 2, another high-scoring affair, but this time it was the Kings who wound up winning 5-4 in overtime. That was an impressive win there for LA. But then the Oilers would really take over that series. Game 3 over in LA was a dominant win from Edmonton 6-1. Game 4 in LA was a very close, very tightly contested affair that Skinner stole for the Oilers with a 1-0 win. And then Game 5 was a really good, impressive back and forth game, but once again it's a high scoring, close, tightly contested win for the Oilers as they beat the Kings 4-3. So lots of interesting games that happened over there in that series, but the Oilers did win in 5. And lastly, for the Canucks and the Predators, this was probably the most boring series according to a lot of people in the first round. The Canucks were able to get a couple goals in short succession and win, I think it was 3-2 or 4-2 in Game 1 over the Nashville Predators. Game 2 was another interesting game, but it was Nashville who wound up winning 4-1. Game 3 back in Nashville was a 2-1 win for the Vancouver Canucks. Game 4 Nashville was a late comeback by the Vancouver Canucks, an overtime win, and they wound up down in Nashville 4-3 in overtime. Game 5, the Predators were able to come around and get a 2-1 victory to force a Game 6. Then in Game 6, the Canucks were able to come away with a huge victory and did wind up winning the series with a 1-0 victory. So interesting stuff there, but the Canucks do wind up moving on. So how are these first round matchups wound up going with my predictions in the first round? Well, a couple of weeks ago I did make my predictions. Here are my predictions. I said the Kings would win in 7 games, the Canucks would win in 5 games, the Stars would win in 7 games, the Jets would win in 7 games, the Panthers would win in 6 games, the Maple Leafs would win in 7 games, the Canes would win in 6 games, and the Rangers would win in 5 games. So how did I do? Well, I got 3 of the 4 teams right in the Eastern Conference, and 1 of the 4 game lengths correct in the Eastern Conference. So the Carolina Hurricanes I was expecting to win, they did. The New York Rangers I was expecting to win, they did. The Florida Panthers I was expecting to win, they did. The only one that I got wrong was I was expecting the Maple Leafs to win, and the Boston Bruins did, but that was a really tight series. But that was also the only Eastern Conference series that had the game length correct. I did expect Bruins Leafs to go 7, and it did. So that's really good stuff there. But on top of that, the other 3 series, that was only 1 game off. I expected Panthers, Hurricanes to go 6, and I expected the Rangers to go 5. Instead, the Panthers and Hurricanes series went 5, and the Rangers series went 4. So I was only 1 game off on those ones, so I'm not too upset about that. Over in the Western Conference, I got 2 right, 4 wrong. I was expecting the Stars and the Canucks to win the series and advance to round 2. I was not, however, expecting the Oilers and the Avalanche to make the second round. And maybe the Kings getting through was wishful thinking, but I was expecting the Kings to win in 7. The Oilers wound up winning in 5. I was expecting the Jets to win in 7. I was expecting that to be a long, tightly contested series, one that Hellbuck would steal for the Avalanche. The Jets were my early Stanley Cup favorites, and they wound up flopping, so that was really bad stuff there for Winnipeg. And the Avalanche do wind up winning in 5 instead of the Jets in 7. I did project the right length and the right winner for the Stars-Knights series. Stars did win in 7. That was an impressive win there for Dallas last night. Well, I did get the team right for the Canucks, but once again, I was just 1 game off, with the Canucks winning in 6 games instead of 5. So, for most of my predictions, I was right. I got 5 of the 8 teams right on my predictions, so I'm pretty happy with that. I also got 5 of my 8 predictions right last year in my first round predictions, so Pretty happy with that, and I got 6 of my predictions within 1 game of being right, so I'm pretty happy with that. So those were my first round predictions. Now revamping everything for the second round with the predictions now gone wrong for some of them. So I'm going to give you my new second round predictions, and I'm going to tell you who I think is going to go to Stanley Cup Final as of this point in time, as we're recording this video. So first I'm going to start in the Metro Division, because I'm going to start with a series that I actually did predict right, as the Carolina Hurricanes and New York Rangers. The Carolina Hurricanes were the second place team in the Metro Division, the New York Rangers were the first place team in the Metro Division, the first place team in the Eastern Conference, and the President's Trophy winners. And this is a matchup that we saw happen a couple of years ago, also in the second round, where we saw the Rangers win, I think it was in 6 games, and beat the Carolina Hurricanes to advance to the Eastern Conference Final. Winner of this series will also advance to the Eastern Conference Final. Now, this is going to be the third all-time matchup in the playoffs between the Carolina Hurricanes and New York Rangers. Now, first one, some people may count it, some people may not count it, but they did play in the qualifying round of the 2020 bubble playoffs. The Hurricanes did wind up winning that series in 3 games, so they had played in the playoffs before, but that was back in the bubble playoffs. That was the first time they played, including dating back to Carolina's time in Hartford. So that was the first time they wound up playing. Now, you could count that. Some people might not count that. So if you're not counting that, then they've only played once before, and that was a couple of years ago in the Eastern Conference Final, when the New York Rangers wound up winning, I think it was in 6 games, to the Carolina Hurricanes to advance to face the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Eastern Conference Final. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens with those Rangers team, but it's going to be an interesting series. So it's the second time, if you include the qualifying round, those two have played all time. If you look at who's best at offense, defense, and goaltending, offense, really close, really tightly contested. I mean, these two teams are extremely lethal offensively. Hurricanes are a much more lethal team than the Capitals were. Rangers are a much more lethal team than the Islanders were. So this is going to be an interesting series between those two forward groups. I'll give the slight edge in the forward group to Carolina, just given how good of a depth they have right now and how they still have some injuries, but still have some really good depth on that team. So I'm going to say the Carolina Hurricanes had the slight edge offensively. Defensively, it's a really toss-up again, too. I mean, both these teams are really good decors. The Rangers with guys like Lindgren, Miller, Trouba. The Hurricanes with guys like Slavin, Orlov, Chatfield, D'Angelo, Burns. I mean, they have a really good decor too. So I'll give the slight edge to Carolina, just given how deep of a decor they have and how they can easily roll 3 deep pair lines. And I think they have a really good decor. So I'll give the Carolina Hurricanes the edge there. Goaltending, I'm going to give the edge to the Rangers. I mean, they have Shesterkin, who's a top 3 goaltender in the NHL. No offense to Frederik Andersen, who's had a fantastic run, but I think Shesterkin would be the better goaltender than Andersen. Slightly, not too much, but Andersen's, I think, is still on a different level than the Rangers' Shesterkin is. So those are who I think have the edges offensively, defensively, and goaltending-wise. So my prediction, I'm going to keep to my prediction from the first round. I think that these two teams are going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. Both these teams have extremely lethal offenses, but also some pretty good decors and good goaltending. So it's going to be an interesting series. It's going to be a hard-fought series, but I'm going to predict the exact opposite of what happened the last time these two played in the second round. I'm going to say the Carolina Hurricanes win in 6. And I know that we've already seen Game 1 happen, and the Rangers did win 4-3, but I'm still sticking with my predictions of Hurricanes in 6. I think the Hurricanes are a really good team. They look destined to go for a deep playoff run this year, and on top of that, I'm still not very convinced that the Rangers, being a President's Trophy winning team, can really make too much noise in the playoffs, given the fact that they did win the President's Trophy, and the President's Trophy team has not won a cup, I think, in the playoffs since 2012. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens there. On top of that, you also got the other Eastern Conference playoff series, which is the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. Now, this is going to be the battle between the top 2 teams in the Atlantic. The Bruins were second in the Atlantic in the regular season. The Panthers were top team in the Atlantic in the regular season. So that's going to be an interesting series for sure. And this is going to be a rematch of last year's first round matchup between the Panthers and the Bruins too. So it's going to be an extremely intriguing matchup to see who ends up coming with the victory here and going on to the Eastern Conference Final. Now, for the Bruins and Panthers, this will be the third all-time meeting between these two franchises. The Bruins have not been able to beat the Panthers in a playoff series. The Panthers did win all the way back in 1996, the first time these two teams met in the playoffs. And then last year, like we said, first round series, the Panthers were down 3-1, came back, won 4-3 in the series in overtime in Game 7. So they won again. So interestingly enough, the two times the Panthers have wound up being able to make it to the Cup final and play for the Stanley Cup, they've had to go through Boston. So it's quite possible if the Panthers win again, there's a very likely chance maybe to go back to the Cup final. So it'll be an interesting series for sure. Panthers have a really good team, Bruins have a really good team, but this will be the third all-time meeting between these two franchises, with the Bruins trying to get their first win in the playoffs. Who do I think has the edge offensively, defensively, and goaltending-wise? Well, in the offensive category, I think it's definitely Florida. They have a really solid top six. They have a fantastic depth on their forward group. Bruins have a pretty good forward group too, with guys like Pastrnak, Marchand, Zacha. They have a couple of decent forwards there, but they just don't have the next level that the Panthers do. It's sort of like the Tampa series, where Tampa has some really good players too, but I just can't compete with the Panthers' depth that they have right now. So I would say Panthers have the edge offensively. Defensively, it's a real toss-up. I mean, it's really, really close. I'll give the slight edge to Boston, given the fact they have guys like Lindholm, McAvoy, but that Panthers defense is nothing to scoff at, and they're a really good defensive team too, so I think it's more of a toss-up at that point. Goaltending-wise, I'm going to give the slight edge to Florida. I think Bobrovsky has looked fantastic, not only in the regular season, but in that first-round series against Tampa. He's looked fantastic. I know Swayman looked pretty good against Toronto too, but Swayman's always had Toronto's number, it seems, and I think Florida will be able to find a way to solve Swayman. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but I will give the slight edge to Bobrovsky in net. So this is going to be an interesting series, rematch of last year's first-round series. Bruins are going to be looking for revenge. Panthers are going to be looking to win their third time ever against the Boston Bruins in the playoff series, and I'm going to be taking the Florida Panthers in an extremely low amount of games of only 5. I know this is a little bit of a surprise. I could see it go 6, but this Panthers team is quite something special in my opinion. I think they have a really good chance to make another deep playoff run this year, so I'm going to say Panthers in 5. The Bruins are coming off of a long and grueling series. It still seems like Pastrnak might be injured. Meanwhile, the Panthers have now had a little bit of time to recuperate, and they should be ready and raring to go. So very interesting stuff there. Going over to the Western Conference side now. So for the Central Division, we have a Dallas Stars Colorado Avalanche matchup. I predicted Dallas Winnipeg, but this is going to be another interesting series. The Avalanche were able to handily beat the Winnipeg Jets in a short succession. The Dallas Stars had a lot of a difficult time, but came back from a 2-0 deficit to wind up winning in 7 over the Golden Knights. So both these teams had really interesting first-round series. This is going to be a matchup between the third team in the Central Division, which is the Colorado Avalanche, and the top team in the West and the Central Division, which is the Dallas Stars, as two of the powerhouses in the Central Division. The top two teams from last year's division will end up facing off against each other. So this is going to be an interesting series. This is going to be the 6th all-time meeting between the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche, the most ever by a Colorado Avalanche opponent in the playoffs. The Stars did win the first 2 times. The first 2 times was back in 1999-2000 en route to their Cup final appearances, so that was interesting. The Colorado Avalanche did win the next 2 in 2004 and 2006, so that was interesting to see Colorado beat Dallas. And then the most recent meeting was back in the bubble playoffs in the second round, when the Dallas Stars did wind up winning, I think it was in 6 or 7 games over the Avalanche, en route to their Cup final appearance against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So each time the Dallas Stars have been able to beat the Colorado Avalanche in the playoff series, they have went to the Stanley Cup Finals. So that's interesting to note there. But the Stars have won 3 of the 5 meetings previously, and this will be looking for their 4th meeting in 6 times against the Colorado Avalanche. So that'll be interesting to see if the Stars are able to do that, or if the Avalanche will win their 3rd time and tie up their record in the playoffs against each other. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But this is going to be the 6th all-time game between the Stars and the Avalanche. If you look at who's better offensively, defensively, and in the net. Offensively, I'll give the slight edge to Colorado, just given their top-end talent. McKinnon, Rantanen, I think are probably slightly a bit better than any of the other forwards the Stars have. I know the Stars have an extremely deep forward group and can get scoring contributions from pretty much anywhere, but I would give the slight edge to the Colorado Avalanche in forward group, just given the fact of their star power. Defensively, I gotta give it to the Colorado Avalanche. Both teams have extremely good decors, but when you have a guy like Makar and Taves on the defensive end, I think you have to give the defensive core edge to Colorado. No offense to guys like Heiskanen or Tanev or Lindell or anything like that. The Stars have a pretty good decor too, but I think slightly Avalanche have a much more better decor. Goaltending wise, both teams have really good goaltending, but I am going to give the slight edge to Jake Onger. I think Onger's a really good goaltender. Georgiev found his way in that first round series against the Jets. He looked like a pretty good goaltender there, but I think that Onger at this point in time is definitely the better of the 2 goaltenders, so I'll give the slight edge in goal to the Dallas Stars. So it'll be interesting to see exactly who wins this series. Like we said, 6 times all time these two teams have met. Avalanche are a really good team. Stars won the Central Division. Stars knocked off the defending Stanley Cup champs. Avalanche were able to handily beat the Winnipeg Jets to finish second in the Central. So it'll be interesting to see exactly who ends up winning. But in my predictions, I'm going to go with the Dallas Stars in 7 games. Now, we've already seen this before. Pete DeBoer has never lost a Game 7 series. So if this does go a distance, I'm for sure picking Dallas. Dallas is also a really good team. I think Onger's going to be fantastic in this series. I think there's a very likely chance that the Stars are able to figure out some way to figure out Georgiev. I think both teams will be really tightly contested. I think could be a couple of games that go to overtime, but I do think Dallas does wind up winning. And lastly, I'm going to go over to the Canucks and the Oilers. Now, this is going to be another interesting series. This is a matchup between the top 2 teams in the Pacific Division. The Canucks, who are first in the Pacific and won their division, take on the Oilers, who are second in the Pacific. This is going to be an intriguing matchup between 2 teams from Western Canada. So we'll have a Canadian team in the Final Four. So this is going to be an interesting series. This is going to be the 3rd all-time game between the Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks. And unlike any of the other series where the Bruins and Panthers played last year, the Canes and Rangers played 2 years ago, the Avs and Stars played 4 years ago in the bubble, where they have some resemblance of playing these teams in the playoffs recently. The Canucks and the Oilers have not played at all recently. The last time that these 2 teams played was back in the 1900s. The first time these 2 teams met was 1986. The Oilers did wind up winning that series. The second time these 2 teams met was 1992. The Oilers did win that series, so the Oilers have won both times against the Canucks, but that was back a long time ago before the Canucks had even made it to the Cup final against the New York Rangers in 94. So that was a long time ago, 32 years ago. So it's the first time in 32 years that we'll have a Canucks-Oilers meeting in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see who wins the 3rd all-time meeting, but the Oilers do have the advantage history-wise, winning both times, even though they were back in the late 80s and early 90s. Going over to who I think has the edge offensively, defensively, and in net. Offensively, I'm going to give the edge slightly to Edmonton, given their star power, sort of like the Avalanche. They have a really good forward group with guys like McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, who are really lethal at this point in time. But top to bottom, the Canucks have the better team. If you had to take one of the team's bottom 6, I would definitely take the Canucks bottom 6 over the Oilers bottom 6. But I think just given the star power the Oilers have, I would give the offensive edge to Edmonton. Defensively, both teams have really decent defense, of course, but I'm going to take the defense that has the Norris Trophy finalist on it, and Quinn Hughes. Bouchard's a really good defenseman. Ekholm's a pretty good defenseman. Nurse is a pretty suitable defenseman, but I think the Canucks, there's guys like Hughes, Ronick, Myers, Zadorov, Cole, they have a much better decor in my opinion. So I think that the Canucks, in my opinion, would have the better decor. Goaltending-wise, it really does depend on who plays. The Canucks currently have Demko injured. DeSmith is backing up. Seelovs is a starter. I'm quite surprised that Seelovs is actually the starter for the Canucks at this point in time. It's really good for him. But given that fact, I think if Seelovs does play the way he did against Nashville, I would have to give the edge and goal to the Canucks. I mean, Skinner at times looked really good, but also at times looked human. And I think that there's going to be an interesting series there, because I think Skinner last year in the second round really collapsed. If he can do really good and give them serviceable goaltending, this could be a really good advantage there for the Edmonton one. But if Seelovs play like the way he did in the first round, I have to give the edge and goal to the Canucks. And if Demko comes back the way he played in Game 1 against the Predators, and he's at least somewhat healthy, I'd still give the edge in net to Vancouver. So in my opinion, I think if it's Seelovs and he playing like he was in the first round, or if it's Demko, I think I have to give the edge and goal to Vancouver. But at this point in time, let's say the Canucks have the edge and goal. If you look at this series, it's going to be an interesting one. 2 West Canadian teams looking to get to the conference final. Last time the Canucks were able to do that, they made it to the Cup final in 2011. Last time the Oilers were able to do that, they got swept by the Avalanche 2 years ago. So it'll be an interesting series to see who ends up winning, but I know this might be another unpopular pick. I'm picking the Canucks in 6. This is really reminiscent for me of the Oilers and Golden Knights series last year. I mean, the Golden Knights had a really big defense, so did the Canucks. They beat a Central Division team who never won a Stanley Cup final, so the Golden Knights. They're going in pretty much heavy underdogs against the Edmonton Oilers. The Knights were last year too. A lot of people were expecting the Oilers to make it to the Cup final. A lot of people are expecting the Oilers to make the Cup final this year. Golden Knights in that series against Edmonton had to switch goaltenders due to the Brossoit injury. The Canucks have already had to use multiple goaltenders. I really do think that this could be the Canucks series to end up moving on. So that's my opinion. I think the Canucks do wind up advancing to round 2, and I do think that they wind up winning this series in 6. So that's my predictions on the Canucks and the Oilers. And just quickly here to go through what would happen in the 3rd and 4th rounds. finals. So you have the conference final of the Canucks and the Stars, and the Panthers and the Canes. Panthers, Canes, really interesting teams. Offensively, I'll give the edge to Carolina. Defensively, I'll give the edge to Florida, as well as goaltending to Florida. It will be a really interesting series, but I would say Panthers in 6. Stars, Canucks. Stars will be a really interesting series coming off a really hard battle against the Avalanche. Canucks will be a really banged up team after being the Oilers. Offensively, I would give the slight edge to Dallas. Defensively, slight edge to Vancouver. Goaltending wise, slight edge to Dallas with Odger. I would say Dallas winds up winning in 7 games, which would set up a final of the Stars and the Panthers. And in this final, both teams have really good. I would say Stars have a slight edge in net. Panthers have a slight edge in the defensive category, and they also have an edge in the forward group. So I would say Panthers will wind up winning their first ever Stanley Cup in 6 games over the Dallas Stars. So that's my prediction right now. After all the things that happened in the second round, I would say that the Stars do wind up losing to the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final, and the Florida Panthers are now my new Stanley Cup favorites. So that's going to be interesting to see if those wind up coming true. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on who you think will make it to the Stanley Cup. As things sit here in the second round, down in the comment section below. What do you think about all of this? That's all I'm going to talk about for today. Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on who you think wound up going to a cup final down in the comment section below. What do you think about all that we discussed here today, and were there any surprises to you from the first round? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. And don't forget to stay tuned for 3:30 tomorrow as we have draft lottery live videos. Definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that. But that's all I want to talk about for today. Until this video, and for this, remember to subscribe down below. Thank you for your support. I'll never be able to love you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. And don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so I'll discuss today's video. Also a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So if you can check that out, I'll leave a link down in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.